All right, everybody, we are recording. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Dionne Mischler. I'm founder of Inside Sales by Design, as well as salesclass.ai. And today we are super fortunate to have James with us, as well as Matt Millen. Their backgrounds are amazing. As we kind of get rolling, we'll put our LinkedIn profiles into the chat feature for everybody. So if you get a chance, please connect with us, connect with each other. The whole purpose of coming together during any time, especially now, is to connect with folks, conversations, and continue on this journey of being really good at what we do all the time at the end of the day. So again, thank you everybody for joining us. We're talking about 3 P's you only need in prospecting. And I think the word prospecting can sometimes have this really interesting connotation for folks. And I would simply call it out and say, think about prospecting from a perspective of anytime we are calling and asking about something and or inquiring about something, whether we're calling from a partner perspective, we're calling our customers, we're calling to get our internet set up, right? Like we are always in a mode of doing outreach and hopefully having quality conversations. So we're not the person people hope they forget they talked to that day. Right. So let's be super clear on that. Right. I know Matt is smiling, right. So you want to be the person that are like, wow, you know what? I don't know if I remember that person's name, but that conversation was really good. And I really hope to have it again. So that's really what we're talking about today. And we are super fortunate to have James with us, like I said, and Matt and everybody here. This is a working session. So as we're going through and talking about these things, you're gonna see some notes in the chat, right? All that good stuff. And so really, let's talk about it. These are the 3 key areas that we can do as sales professionals that Matt, I'm going to totally steal your line from yesterday, that help us aim the gun, right? I do not say it as eloquently as Matt. I talk about it more from a very functional perspective because that's me, but he's like, aim the gun and you have to do these things to be successful. So I thought that was really, really poignant yesterday when we were prepping for a conversation today. So with that, James, give us a little bit about your background and then walk us through the agenda.
Hey, thanks, Dionne. Yeah, so I'm James. Very happy to be here today. I am the SVP of Customer Operations over here at Reggie. So I handle every customer-facing interaction, whether it's onboarding through the ongoing success motion. And one of the things that we often talk about is, how do you engage more with your buyers on the front end? How do you make your content more compelling? How do you save time when it comes to crafting what is supposed to be personalized content out to the people that you're prospecting to? So excited to take you through the agenda today. We're really going to unpack the 3 Ps that come up the most for us, which is persona, pain point, and then personalization. And I think it's going to be a great conversation today.
It is. Hey, James, can you switch your displays because we're seeing the presenter view?
Oh, sure. Yeah, let me see where the
I know.
the actual screen is going. I'm working with a new monitor setup today.
Oh, yes.
Thanks, James.
Problem. Give me 1 second.
I know. Technology, right? When it works, it's our favorite thing on the planet. And when it doesn't, you're like, screw it, just give me pen and paper because it's easy. And
How's that?
Perfect. Thank you.
Fantastic.
Yeah, we have a lot of ground to cover today. And these concepts we're talking about are things that all of us know at the end of the day. Hopefully, though, we give you a new perspective on ways to kind of think about it, look at it, and take action against it. Go for it.
Absolutely. So I mean, just diving right in, one of the first places that we start is talking about that buyer persona. And the way that we talk about it is a little bit different than how it's commonly been talked about. So you'll often hear ideal customer persona and really drilling down on that one key customer that you're going to be going at. But through every interaction that we have with our customers and the way that we talk about it is we talk more about the ideal persona profile. And what that is taking a look at who your ideal buyer is and identifying the buyers and champions that are adjacent to those in each different direction. So we really go with the methodology of going 3 deep and 3 wide. So taking your key buyer and then identifying out who are the people that influence them. So for example, you're going after a VP in the operations department. who are their direct reports that would benefit from your solution and what are their pain? And as you start to think about those things, it'll become easier and easier to craft out the messaging that's more specific to solving that pain. Because what we want to do when we start to look at these personas and start to combine everything together is come to a point where we can provide real value for the pain that they're experiencing. And if you can hit them in that 3 deep, 3 wide approach, you'll just make your chances of actually converting that deal to a close better and better, because you'll be engaging with different facets of the business and showing them the multitude of ways that your product or service can come in and help them out.
Mm-hmm. So question for everybody here, how many of you, and feel free to put it in the chat, how many of you work with personas within your current sales world today? And so if you don't want to put in the chat, I get it. So the question is, and there's kind of a continuing choose your own adventure here. So how many of you here have a persona? And then just like James was saying, is how do we kind of take that a little bit deeper and go down to, okay, well, how effective are my personas? Do they truly provide me the surround strategy, like James was talking about, the ability to leverage the persona, the information, who am I calling? What do they care about? What do I say at the end of the day? Because those are kind of the 3 big buckets, right?
Dionne?
Yeah.
Yeah, to pile on to that, I think, one way to think about persona is like, who in the organization that I'm targeting cares about what I do?
Yes.
Like who would be interested in what we do professionally? And I think that starts to allow us to narrow in and to hone in who we should be targeting within those organizations and what we should be speaking about that matters to them. And we'll get into that with the pain and the personalization, but the persona is really important. You went back to that aim the gun, like who cares?
Yeah.
Like, and you talked about like we interrupt people, like who would treat our call not as an interruption?
Right.
Like who would be interested in what we have to talk about?
Absolutely. And then we have a question too that says, how are you defining personas, right? So some folks on the call haven't used that phrase before. So quick and dirty definition, Matt or James or anybody else, feel free to throw it in the chat.
So very simply, we try to simplify things as much as possible because, things don't have to be complicated. Things don't have to be hectic in your day-to-day. So when we think about it, we think of the management level, we think of the department that they reside in, and then we think of their industry. And we start from there and then start to map out from there that 3 deep, 3 wide approach.
Got it. Yeah. So, and I think you were asking that question. I would follow up with James directly, or you can follow with myself as well. And just to have a little bit of that conversation, we're happy to dive into that a little bit more, for sure. Anybody else, as you get a chance, put that in the chat. How do you as an organization or as a team or your sales leader or you as a sales individual define your personas? Any and all of that is absolutely helpful. And I think to what Matt is talking about is regardless of, it's not busy work. It's really that we ask these questions to drive clarity into our messaging and who cares about what we're saying, right? Not from a flippant perspective, but who really cares about the message we're delivering. Yeah. James, all right, let's talk about, so we talked a little bit about personas, right? We should have them in some way, stage, fashion, or form. And now we're going to go into the second P, which is
pain. And that's exactly right, Dionne. And listen, if you're not at the point where you've got like a fully robust ideal persona profile where you've got your 3 deep, 3 wide, don't feel bad about that because it's never too late to start doing that. And if you put that work in the front end, identifying the pain points associated and really mapping the value that your business provides, whether it's a service or a product, becomes that much easier. So really taking that persona profile, looking at each individual persona and asking yourself, how do you solve that unique problem that facet of the business engages with? And then how does your value tie back into that? So 50% more likely to buy a product or service solution setting. So really being able to go in the solution that your product provides to address that pain that they might be feeling.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point for those of us that are maybe a little bit more seasoned. Noticed I didn't say older, I just said seasoned, and have grown up in the professional services world, right? There's an age-old phrase that says no one ever got fired for hiring IBM to do their work, which isn't a true phrase anymore. So, but it's one of those things that says if you're the person in your organization that brings in outside help, is that outside help going to help you in a personal professional capacity, right? So it kind of goes back to the question that Matt was asking that says who cares at the end of the day. So Matt, anything to add to that?
I got a few things. I got to shout out my buddy Matt McManus is on today. So great to see your name, Matt. So a couple things around pain. And if we just start at the top, like if there's no pain, there's no sale. If there's no pain, there's no need to talk. So one of the things that we often do is we qualify early in our outbound prospecting effort just to make sure that there's a potential need or want. So right off the top, it's also really important to understand that when you get the persona right, that individual, group of individuals or department usually has a problem that your product or service solves. And you need to know that. So one of the things that we want to be doing is making sure that we are establishing relevancy. In other words, when we call in, it's worth your time to explore this conversation because you're most likely dealing with a problem or a pain in your organization that our organization solves credibly.
They're going through the exact same workflow, so we can ingest that data directly.
Hey, everybody, can you go ahead and mute, please? We're hearing some background noise. Thank you.
Yeah, somebody's closing a deal right now. So that's
Which is
awesome.
amazing. Thanks for joining.
So I think it's really important that after we build out our persona, we want to understand the challenges, the problems, what professionally they're looking to do that we solve to create that linkage. The other thing to understand that we want to make sure that our teams feel really good about is that the individual in the company that you're prospecting, they're under as much pressure to solve their business problems as your team is to make a sale. So when you're talking to the right person around solving the right problem, both parties are equally motivated to have that conversation and potentially move forward.
And hopefully that can help anybody on the call today who's saying, oh gosh, every time I call somebody, I'm interrupting them. At the end of the day, I think we need to really get rid of that phrase and treat our job and our vocation as a noble profession at the end of the day, because we are truly here to help folks, right? So I think to what Matt is talking about is, hey, when we go into it with a mindset that says, hey, you know what, we solve this problem. If you have this problem, we can talk. If it's not, and then you can kind of, again, decision tree your way through that conversation at the end of the day.
For a healthy mindset, we are not interrupters. We're just making unexpected phone calls. Okay? That's all we're doing is we're making unexpected phone calls. But when we do our job right, when we call the right person to help them solve the right problem, that conversation should end with them saying, thank God you called.
Yeah.
This is exactly what we need.
Yeah.
So like we want to shift the mindset. We want to shift the attitude of our sellers or of ourselves. If we're doing the work, we're not interrupters. We're just making unexpected phone calls. We're heroes bringing solutions to the table.
Yes, absolutely. One of the questions we have is, what is an example of a distinction between a personal and company value?
Can they expand that question a little more deeply, please?
So Gary, you had put that in there. So what is an example of a distinction between a personal and company value? So Gary, if you get a chance, go ahead and put a little bit more detail in there. I think, the company might care about certain things. As a professional, we probably care about our reputation. We care about bringing solutions to the table. We care about meeting our budget, right? Things of that nature. That's kind of how I'm interpreting that question. I would say too.
I think it's in relating to the text that James has on the slide.
Okay.
In the middle paragraph.
Yeah. So they see the personal value, But I think it's a personal professional value too, right? So as a professional, what am I going to care about? And then conversely, what is my company going to care about, right? So how
Exactly. So again, that's where it comes back in with that persona matrix. Is if you're starting to look at the pain by a department level, you can also get in and get that personal value, because you know, like, okay, like this individual, like this director at this company has this challenge that they experience with their staff on a day-to-day. You can address that. And then you can also address the overarching company value that your product or service is going to end up bringing to that business as a whole. So getting the individual unit pain and personalization, and then tying that back into the overall, feature set that you're able to give to that business.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that. And I don't know about you, but I mean, we've worked with organizations where the person we are working with ends up getting promoted.
Yeah.
If they want to, right? So everybody has a different career arc, but in this case, a lot of the folks that we work with within our organization end up getting promoted. And so
Yeah.
that's kind of the personal distinction. The company distinction, right, is the other values that we had talked about as well. So,
Totally. And if you're going in with that mindset that you're coming in to present a solution and solve a real problem, you're also giving that individual an opportunity to kind of be a hero. Like if that ends up being a significant problem, Dionne, to your point, like now you're making heroes in the process, because they're going to bring in a great solution that you help them find.
absolutely. So yes. So hopefully everybody thumbs up, thumbs down if this is helping with some of your sales mindset nowadays, going from a interrupter to unexpected phone calls, as Matt calls it. I love all your little euphemisms, Matt. All right, everybody, moving on. So we've talked about persona, we've talked about pain, and now the third P.
Tying it together with personalization. So, personalization, we like to talk about it from the standpoint of balance. Because if you over personalize, you can come off as potentially having too much data, you can come off as pushy. And most of all, it's going to suck a lot of time out of your sales reps. You're going to decrease the amount of prospects that you're able to touch because you're trying to over personalize. So when we talk about personalization, we start by talking about earning the right to personalize to an extent. So by coming in with personalization based off of those buyer personas with that solutions mindset, you can get personalized enough there to solve a real problem that they have. And then as you go down that process, you can start to trickle in more pieces of personalization that's more relevant to that prospect. You don't have to start with all that. So you don't have to start by trying to force the connection where there isn't one, by calling out, I see that you're an alumni of this college. I see that you love this sports team. You can start more broadly and still be personal by identifying the problems and challenges and presenting a really great solution that can address those problems and challenges. And then the rest can come later as you build and nurture that relationship.
Yeah, I agree. I think one of the things that, and I think this is a really good conversation too, right, is within your organization, as you're developing your personas and your pain points and your personalization, you almost have to standardize on a definition of it too, right? And number one, and then number two is talking about there's a personalization spectrum, right? And Matt, I'm totally stealing all of your words from yesterday, right? Maybe some of them. I don't remember all of them. My brain is not what it used to be. But talking about personalization starts at the company and persona level, and then gradually increases to that business rapport level of college and all this other good stuff, right? So it really starts from the persona, the pain we're solving, on that level. So it's almost a little bit more high level, not necessarily generic, specific to solving a business problem, and then gradually moves in the across the spectrum into a personal personalization, if that makes any sense, right? So Matt, James, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I'll double click on that. I think like a meta point would be, you don't have to know me to sell to me. You
Yeah.
just have to know what problems I'm solving and be available to help. And I think that's really important for people to understand. And I think there's this fallacy about personalization. I've seen sales reps spend 2 to 3 hours personalizing an email that never gets opened. And that's just a real challenge. Yeah. And today we got to remember that, what's most important today, because outbound prospecting is hard and it's only getting harder. And in survey after survey, sales reps say outbound prospecting is the hardest part of my job. So I get it. So what's more important than personalization is being relevant, like to stand out through being relevant and using that opportunity of relevancy to start to establish credibility. And I think when we can think about that first, and what I like to do is I like to be highly efficient in my prospecting. I want to very quickly assess whether or not I can help you solve a problem. And if I can, I want to be very efficient, very effective in doing that. And what's going to happen is Dionne's going to say, hey, like Matt's been really efficient, effective. I enjoy because he's like maximizing our time. And then over time in our interaction, I will build rapport with Dionne going from professional, maybe to personal, maybe not. It doesn't even matter.
Right.
But the point is, I'm not forcing this personalization up front that's going to get in the way of relevancy and prohibit me from ever getting to credibility.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that, and that's kind of talking about that spectrum we started off with, right? And I think when we were looking at this yesterday, calling out the interesting juxtaposition between bullet 1 and bullet 3 that says 72% want it personalized, but 81% say you're using too much of my data. All right, right. So how do we balance those two data points at the end of the day?
It's
So
easy. It's the creepiness factor. It's like when you're getting so personal that it's like they've been stalking you and it's creepy.
Yeah.
And the personalization that people really want is business relevancy, meaning it's contextually personalized to the outreach, not to the point where it's creepy.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. So anybody here with us today, thoughts, comments, feedback on that? How do you approach personalization? Are you that person that's spending 2 hours going down the research rabbit hole, going, oh my gosh, I wasn't able to hit my activity metrics at the end of the day, right? Which, and I'm not a huge fan of activity metrics. I like it from a barometer perspective, right? Like if we're not doing our outreach, it's the filling of the funnel, right? It's the tip of the spear, whatever euphemism you want to use at the end of the day. If we're not making phone calls, nothing can come in the door. So if we're not able to do our outreach because we're doing 3 hours of research for an email that's never opened, we're kind of screwing ourselves into the ground at the end of the day, right? So how do you all on this call look at personalization, and how is that working for you at the end of the day? Is the other question. So feel free to put that in the chat or take it home with you and stew on it a little bit, and hopefully that helps with a little bit of moving forward at the end of the day.
Yeah, and Dionne, it's so interesting. You know, once you get to the habit of doing these things, you'll find that like there are downline benefits to this, even from a customer success standpoint, because we know that customer success really starts at the point of sale. And if you get in the habit of doing these types of things, when you're coming up on renewals, when you're coming up on, you know, trying to engage customers for reviews, like knowing that like you're coming in and you're going to be efficient with their time and you're going to get them the solution that they need quickly, like that's a lot of personal benefit there. You know, as we all become increasingly like more connected but disconnected at the same time with the state of things right now, it's really great to be able to like go in and genuinely help people out. If you can make somebody's day a little bit easier via personalization by knowing what their pain points are and how to solve those pain points, you're going to just boost that relationship over and over again.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you. All right, everybody, we're going to wrap up and make sure we give everybody, we stick to what we said we were going to stick to today. Take it away, James.
Absolutely. So yeah, just tying it all together, you know, starting with that persona matrix so that you can get an idea of the different pains and challenges that your different buyers might experience, and also the different pain and challenges that the people under them or above them might experience, is going to help you, you know, really turbocharge your ability to identify that pain and to identify the specific pain that those people feel. And then once you've got that specific pain, you can tie it back to your solution by bringing those two things together and increasing that business personalization that we talked about by solving that problem for them directly. And again, keeping it efficient with their time, keeping their pain top of mind, and making it about the prospect is going to help nurture that relationship to success.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So everybody, as you're kind of walking through some of this, the 3 Ps that we talked about, kind of grade yourself, right? On a scale of 1 to 10, how well are you or your organization doing those things? How effective are they? What, if anything, would you need to change or add to or edit in those 3 buckets to be more effective in your sales efforts, right? And then share it with us, share it with each other. Hopefully you guys were able to connect with a few folks here today. And then I think too, James, there's an offer here we have for everybody as well, right? To wrap up.
Absolutely. So at Reggie, we know that one of the biggest challenges is just getting started, whether it's started with content, whether it's knowing the exact workflow to touch your prospects by. So anybody that's attending today, anybody that wants to reach out directly to me at james@reggie.io, we'll sit down and we will build a campaign together for you that you can keep entirely free of charge.
Love that. Thank you so much. And the Reggie.io platform is amazingly simple and very effective. So definitely check it out. I'm a fan.
Hey, Dionne?
Yeah.
Hey, I thought as a little parting, like a little parting comment, I always like to leave a little value at the end.
Yeah.
And we talked a lot about relevancy today.
Yeah.
So I wanted to share just a couple tips on how we can actually create relevancy early.
Yes.
So a couple tips. Number one, referrals and introductions. Like there's no better way to be relevant than having someone that's known and trusted introduce you to them. So like an introduction. So that's why we always want to ask for referrals and introductions. And referrals aren't, hey, call my friend Dionne. It's like, hey, let's get Dionne on the phone and make a live introduction. That's a great referral. If you can't get that, at least get the email. But we want to get referrals. Another way to do it is there's something called triggers that are going on either in the industry or the company. So when regulations change, when things change in an industry that affect what you do, that is a reason to be very relevant in the moment to help them solve a new problem, a new challenge, a new opportunity. And there's company specific triggers, mergers, acquisitions, key hires, new technology, new products. All of these, like when you're looking at your prospects, these are reasons for you to tie out in that moment and highly relevant. So these are things that are really important. Another one is like venture capital, like if you're a smaller venture-backed company, one of your prospects may have the same investors. We would leverage our investors to make those introductions for us. And then lastly is a job change. So there's a number of reasons why a job change would be a great trigger. Number one, an advocate in your existing account could be going to a new account and you want to bring your business with them. It also creates a risk, like who's coming in behind them. So you got to look in who's coming in behind. And there's some accounts that you've been trying to get into where there's been a blocker. Like James hasn't been supportive, but James is moving on. Now that door opens up. So it's really important that you follow the job changes of key people at the buyer's table as it relates to potential business, block business, and protecting your existing business.
All very excellent points, Matt. Things to definitely be aware of as we kind of move through our discussions and our relationships with our buyers and our customers, for sure. All right, everybody, we hope you found this session super valuable. Please feel free to reach out, connect with James, connect with myself, connect with each other, and we wish you an amazing amount of success today and always. Thank you so much. You may go ahead and disconnect.
Cheers.
Everybody.
Cheers.